Hey, what is up guys? Joshua here, and I'm going to be showing you today how to create this really cool prototype using ProtoPie and their API feature so that you can create an actual AI chatbot so you can ask things like, create a travel plan to go to Paris, and if I send that, then I'm going to get a response from it with real data. As I'm going through this tutorial with you guys, I'm going to be showing you common mistakes people are making in ProtoPie and connecting everything together so that you can more easily troubleshoot and find out what's going wrong. And that way you won't make those same mistakes and you can make sure you're getting the API feature in ProtoPie working. And so you can create your own chatbot or connect ProtoPie with any other API that you want. So to get started, I'm going to walk you through everything I've got here just so you can follow along and make this really easy to do. So the first thing, I've got my container right here, which has a input field, and I've got a button to send that, and I've got those connected to these commands. I've got a tap so that it's going to send this message right here, and I've also, if they have that input field open right here, I've got that on my message. If they hit enter on that, then it's also going to send a message right there. And I need to have these both, these are going to both do the same thing. And I like to do that anytime you're duplicating a task, I like to use these send messages just so I can consolidate all those actions into one area. So we're going to do that in a second. I've also got this disable overlay. Something with AI chatbots is when they are generating a response, you can't send another response or that's going to mess it up. So we need to make sure that we can disable that. And what I'm doing here is I'm just using this opacity at 0 so that people can, click through it when it's at 0 opacity, and it's got a color, a white color on it. So that way when the chatbot is generating the response, then we can increase the opacity a little bit. Yeah, I've got my send buttons. I've got a little animation so that when the response is generating, it's going to animate that a little bit. And I've got my question and my actual response text. So let's start this out. I've got these actions right here, so I need to get a receive, and this is going to be send message. So this is going to be my my request right here. First thing I want to do is add the text to the question right there. So I'm going to go to text, add my text layer right here, the question, and I'm going to go to formula. And this is super easy. I can just go to that, click on this plus button, click on the message right there, and I want the text that's coming from that input field right there. So now when I send that message, or when I receive that message, it's going to add the message.text to that question area right here. It's going to replace that. So next I need to delete everything that's in the input field so that they know that they sent it. Hit reset on the message, and I'm going to make that duration 0 just so that it happens really quickly. And then I need to disable the input field too, right? So let's go to opacity, and I want to go to that disable overlay, and I'm going to set that to about 30%. I think that should be enough to make sure that people can see that that has been disabled. And just for good measure, let's make sure that we focus off of that input field. So I'm going to hit focus, focus out, and click on the message. So that way we're going to make sure that it's disabled and that the user doesn't have that activated once they've sent their query. And you can see my send message is highlighted, means something's wrong. It's because it's not receiving any message. We need to receive that submit from these other two. Okay, looks like everything's all good, hooked up right, and now we just need to send that actual request. So we're going to go to send message. If I can find it right here, there we go, send. And then we're going to make that message be ask. And we want to send that to ProtoPie Studio. These other ones are sent to the current scene because we want to make sure everything's happening locally. But with this other one, we want to send that. This is going to be ask right there. And then we're sending that ask message. All right, now we can save our file and go to ProtoPie Connect Studio. And we are going to import that pie right here. I'll click on my AI chatbot. And now we can get started hooking up the API. So the first thing I'll do, go to API, and it's already blank right here. So now I can go to the API reference for OpenAI and try to figure out what kind of things I need to add in there. I've also got this Notion template. I prefer to use Notion to add all my notes for things like that, and it makes it easier to keep track of this stuff as well. So the first thing, going to the API reference, I'll need authentication. And then I need to go to the chat. So, because that's what I'm doing here is creating a chat, right? So I need to go through this, look at the documentation for it. There's a chat completion object. represents a chat completion response. And so you can see I've got down here this completions area as well. And so the completion is the actual chat object that I need to be doing. So here we go, create a completion. So I've got my method right here, post, and then the URL. So let's copy these in. Make sure that I need to use those for my URL. And that's the first thing that I always need in this template. And in fact, right here, you can see everything with ProtoPie Connect, you're always going to need a URL, the header, and then body's optional depending on the API. So you'll have to look at that for whatever API you're connecting to. But you're generally going to need these three things for most situations. We also need to see the authorization. That's always going to be in this JSON format, is this content type, and then application JSON, and then you'll see your API key. And you can see the formatting for that in the reference right here. You can see this example request. You got your content type, and then your authorization, which has this bearer in front of it. So I need to copy that and make sure that I've got that in front of this API key with a space in between that. So now I've got the right formatting, and let's look at the body that we need. The body is in this JSON format right here. You've got the model, the prompt, and the number of tokens and the temperature right there. So if you want to look at what different options like that do, you can look through this. This is the request body. You've got the model, prompt, and it looks like you can add quite a few different options here, the maximum tokens. And in fact, you've even got this one that says like echo. It brings back your original prompt. And so I'm just going to copy this right here and then add that to the body right here in my template. And I don't think I'm going to use temperature, so I'm just going to remove that. And now I can start copying all these things into ProtoPie Connect. So I'm going to go here, make sure that method was post, because you can see it says it needs to be a post right there. Let's add the URL, go to the header, let's add that right here. And we're going to go to the body, and let's copy that in and paste that right here in the body. And now we should be ready to just test this out. So let's hit test request and see what happens. Looks like we've got a failed request. So let's see what's going on. We can see the status. We couldn't parse the JSON. It looks like it means you're not using the library correctly. JSON, it keeps saying like this, it wasn't valid JSON. So let's go back here and take a look at this. So we've got our model, everything's looking right. Oh, it looks like there's a comma at the end of this. So we can't have a comma at the end of a statement because commas are to separate additional information, and we don't have anything additional. So let's try this again. Let's go back here, add that new body in here, and let's test that again. Oh, it looks like we have it's failed again. So let's see why this time. You exceeded your quota. Check your plan and billing details. So it looks like now my plan has lapsed, and so I need to update my my OpenAI API plan because it's not letting me access that. So if you're using OpenAI or different APIs, you need to check your plan and your billing. Make sure that if it's a free plan or if it's a paid plan, that you can actually submit requests. So I'm going to update that. So I'm going to go update that right now. All right, I've now got my plan fixed and I've got the JSON fixed in the body. So let's test that out again. But I'm really quickly going to go back here and I'm just going to ask a different question. What should, I keep spelling this wrong, I have for dinner tonight? All right, now we know exactly what it's going to ask. I'm going to copy that back in right here. And let's make sure we know that that's going to work. Let's hit test request. Oh, and look, it's successful this time. So it looks like we fixed everything we needed to. Let's go through here. And so we've got the ID. This is everything that's returning. And we can use any of this data we want, however we want to. But what we're really looking for is this text right here. It says there are countless options for dinner. Okay, so it looks like it responded to exactly what I need. So now let's see if we can start pulling that information into ProtoPie using those messages. So if you remember, we were here in ProtoPie, we sent this ask message to ProtoPie Connect Studio. So let's go back to Studio, and we've got this Connect API with Pi. So we want to use that ask, and look, it showed up right there, ask. We can look at this override in a bit. We just want to test this and make sure it's working. This is going to be respond right there. So when we ask a question, it's going to respond with the answer. So now let's add that receive the response. We want to receive it from ProtoPie Studio, and we are going to type in respond right there. Okay, so when we, let's see, get response. So when we get that response, we want to do something with it. And we need that data to come in, which means that we need to assign that data to a variable. So let's create a variable. Let's go for all scenes right here. And we're going to call that GPT response. So when we get this, we're going to assign any data we get there to this GPT response, and we're good to go. So now when we get the response, let's assign everything from that variable to the response right here. So let's go to text right here. And again, right now we're just testing out to make sure this is going to work. Let's go formula, and let's just grab that variable right here. Okay, so, and we want to make sure that we have the right text that's going to be replaced. So let's try this out again. We've got all that put together. We're good there. So let's save this, and let's open this up in a web browser and make sure it works. So let's click on this and type in what is a good type of car. And let's hit enter and see if anything happened. It looks like the ask came through, but nothing else happened. So we need to kind of troubleshoot this and see what's going on. First thing I'm noticing is it didn't send any kind of a respond message, which means there's something going on in the API. And if you look down here, I didn't activate it. So I need to hit activate. Okay, so let's try this again. Let's just hit play and type in the same question. What is a good type of car? Let's hit enter there. And so something did happen. It added in 0. So if I look back here, it said ask, and then I did get a response, but that's showing 0. So obviously the data is not coming in correctly. I need to go back to ProtoPie, and this is how you start troubleshooting, is you go through and make sure everything is connected right. So you've got send message, that came through, ask is sent to ProtoPie, so that part's right. The response came through, so it's everything happening in between getting the response and adding that text. So we can look through this one piece at a time, connecting the studio, sending that, assigning it to the variable. Let's look at the variable, and oh, look right here, we've got the number 0. So whenever you're getting data, it's coming through as text. So we need to make sure that that says text right there. So let's try that again. Now that we've got this, let's save this, go back to studio, hit play again, and go back here and try it again. Good car models. And there we go. Look, there the data, it's all coming in, and now I can start doing something with it. So in order to figure out like what I can do with that data and how I can pull that in, I need to understand a little bit more about the formatting, which I usually like to use. Everything is always going to come in as JSON. So I like to use a JSON viewer. And to get that information, I'll go back here to my API and test that same request. And I can copy everything in here and then go to a JSON viewer, and you can just Google any JSON viewer, and then I'll go to view, and then I can see all the different pieces in it. So this is your main JSON object. I've got choices, I've got this 0, and here we go. Here is the text it's going to bring back. So that's what I want to output in that text area. And ProtoPie has this really neat feature. It's the parse JSON. So I want to go through here, get response, add that to that variable, go to my text, and let's add a change to this formula right here. We're going to do parse JSON, and in parentheses, so we want to add my GPT-4 response. So the first thing in the parse JSON is the text you want to control, and then what you want to do with it. So I'm going to add 2 quotes right here. I always like to start off my quotes just so I know it's completed. And then I'm going to go back here to the JSON. So I need choices.0.text. So let's go back to ProtoPie Studio, to ProtoPie, and go choices.0.text. Okay, now let's save this and try this again right here and make sure that that is going to work. So let's hit play and go back to this. I'm just going to type in some random text, hit enter, And oh, look, there we go. It ultimately depends on your personal. So another reason that it's not very long is because of the number of tokens I have here. And I generally like to start out with a few number of tokens for troubleshooting, just so that, if it's, paying for an API, I'm not burning through a bunch of costs before I even have anything working. So I'm going to go like 30 tokens here. Let's copy that in. And in fact, now that I know that this is working, I'm going to update a few things. I'm going to call this replace me. And I'm going to do something a little bit different here. I'm going to copy this, and instead of putting it into ProtoPie Connect, I'm actually going to go back to ProtoPie Studio, and I need a new variable here, and that is going to be my body template. Now the reason for this is because I need to replace that text here before it goes into ProtoPie Connect. And the way I'm going to do that is by sending data the same way that I'm getting it back. It's with that ask. I'm going to send values together, and then I can add a formula right here, and that formula is going to be the body template, but I want to replace that text right here. So I'm going to go to the replace function right here. I'll add in, I'm going to delete this here. First, I want to, this works similar to the parse JSON. I want to go to replace, let's see, that body template actually. No, not replacing. So I got body template, and what do I want to replace? I want to replace the replace me text, and what do I want to replace it with? I want to replace it with the message. So I'm going to get that message right here at .text. Here we go. And so hit OK. And now I want to make sure that it's sending that before it deletes it from here. And so I'm going to actually move this up so that way it actually has the text from that message box. If I sent it after it reset it, then it would be sending nothing. And we don't want that to happen. So let's go to ProtoPie Connect. And now we've also got to override that. And we want to override the body, not the header, not the URL. We want to override the body with the template that we created. So now it should actually give us the response from the actual question we're asking, because it's replacing that in ProtoPie Connect. So to get the actual response we want back here, again, we added the response text and we added that parse JSON. So everything should be working correctly now, but let's just try it out and see what happens. Let's hit play. We saved it. It should all be good to go. What are good types of cars? Let's ask that. And here we go. Look at that. We already got an answer very quickly. This is a subjective question, as many people have different opinions on what makes a good car. However, some popular types of cars that are often. So it cut it off because we were using a limited number of tokens. So we can increase that even more right here to like 40 or 50 or anything we want. But there you go. There is your chatbot using an API and getting that data dynamically. So hope you found that valuable. Feel free to subscribe and keep an eye out for other tutorials for really cool prototyping.